Hey y'all, what's up? Here we are again, another episode of the Undrunken podcast. And I've been trying some new things this season, but to be honest, some of it doesn't feel aligned. So expect some changes, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, follow on the socials, and look out for some new things coming. I promise, at least one episode a month on the 7th. Anything more is just a bonus for y'all. Today's episode, I'm chatting with another friend from the mountain bike community who has chosen to dump the drink. Let's jump in. Welcome, y'all. This is Nene, and I am here with Alastair, who taught me a really cool trick about your name. I do want you to share that, if you wouldn't mind. How to say your name.
It's just that people who have trouble remembering my name, let's just say it's Al is there, or Al is tear. Al is a tear, or on a tear,
Yeah.
or something.
I always say Renee, like Renee, but Courtney. So I have a trick for my name too. But yeah, so we met through mountain biking, and we've been talking about having this chat for a while, and it's my honor and privilege. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's just jump in right away with how long have you been undrunken or a non-drinker?
Now, let's see, 10 and a half years, a little bit short of 10 and a half years. Is that April plus 6? So I'm a month short. At the end of next month, we can call it 10 and a half.
And
Splitting hairs.
yeah, splitting hairs. I love it. Was there a reason that you quit drinking, or was it just something that you lost interest in?
It was overwhelming. It's like a lot of people drink for a lot of different reasons, and a lot of people do a lot of things for a lot of different reasons. And often the perception is that, if you drink, it's because you've had a trauma, or if you drink, it's because of, X, Y, or Z. And I think that there's a little more variation to people's motives. I'm not going to deny trauma, but I think my motivation was like, didn't have a lot going on sometimes, and it's fun drinking. It feels good. Like, you don't really overdo it, and you can't deny that. It's something that always some people have trouble acknowledging about drugs. There is an upside. The downside is a whole lot bigger than the upsides. For me, I got to the point where I was just compelled to drink. Like I didn't feel like I was escaping anything, but it was just such a part of what I was doing that I couldn't get it out of my routine. And occasionally, I'm sure anyone who's even paying attention to this podcast has the idea and the experience that sometimes you chase that high and you can't get there, and you want to get sick or something. Like, this work, I didn't want to. I'm not an undriven person. I want to be undrunken. I wanted to succeed, and I do succeed at work. And it was an obstacle. It just felt like it was preventing me from being. It was just shutting me down, keeping me in a box. You know, again, you enjoy things a lot, but as with anything in life, I think the key to real enjoyment lies in moderation. I've always made the comparison that if you ate lobster every single day, you'd think of lobster like peanut butter and jelly. When you ate it, it would taste good, but it wouldn't be remarkable. If you eat lobster once every 6 months, it's like an occasion. Oh my goodness, it's great. Same thing with cake, same thing with alcohol, same thing with choice of vice or distraction. Call it a dopamine.
Yeah.
Choice of dopamine allocation.
Well, which I think those of us that mountain bike know.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, there's good and there's bad, but at the same time, there's still too much. You can overdo mountain biking too. You need a social life. You need an intellectual life. I believe these are my beliefs. Obviously, you can't say something with the views. I think you need balance, and that's really where I'm at these days. I'm striving to gain more balance in my life, yin yang, but understanding that life is always you're always chasing something. You're always looking to worry about it. Don't let the imperfection of it undermine your motivation.
You said it was getting overwhelming. What did it feel like to stop? And what was that? Was it immediate? Did you taper? Did you have a plan?
I remember being in my apartment and living in New York City. I think it was a Tuesday, and I called in sick the second day in a row. And it wasn't a regular thing, but it happened from time to time. I felt ashamed and disgusted, and I basically immediately quit. That day, like that morning, I I don't remember the exact procession, but I looked for a therapist. I looked for AA meetings. I think by the end of that day, I had an appointment with 2 therapists and had already attended 2 AA meetings. For me, AA was, I don't prescribe it for everyone. I think it's a great outlet because I'm not religious. And I was initially reluctant to embrace that component of it. But if you really boil down to that concept of a higher power, whatever that higher power is, it can be just, the fact that you aren't all powerful, conceding that you aren't all powerful is the higher power. But bottom line is getting in there and initially just being like, these people are different than me. If you stay there, someone stands up and tells a story and you're listening. 75% of that story is like, yeah, whatever. And then they say something, and your eyes open up wide. And you're like, this person is so different from me. What they're saying right now is exactly. And then people from all different walks and different types of people all do the same thing. It makes you feel normal. It makes you realize that you're not. There's not something broken about you. There's not something. It's a normal reaction. It's a normal thing, and it just normalized things for me. And being in that environment, plus the cookies. I really did enjoy the cookies. I used to sit in the back so I could sneak off into the more cookies. I'm one of those entitled people. Try to go, merge in the last second, take extra cookies.
So what were some of the challenges?
A huge challenge that I believe is common to anybody facing that, cessation, whatever it is it feels it's you're so the habit outside of the physical addiction or an emotional drive. It's part of your routine. It's something that you center. I mean, you're very centered on. So it's not just like, you brush your teeth. It's the center of your routine. Like you're scheduling your day around. I mean, when I don't know that everyone has this. You're making concessions and designing things to accommodate. And then when you take that all out, it feels like you're not doing it. The complaint of people quitting smoking pot, especially, is that the boredom. What am I going to do? You're going to be bored, and then you'll figure out how not to be. You'll realize that you actually want to do things, and it's such an alien idea when you're when you're at the beginning of it. The idea that you can live without it. That it's not just I have to give up this thing that I like. It's that it's actually going to be better. But it's so easy to go backwards because it's the concept of comfort. It's familiar, just like I said. It's so central to your life. It becomes a pattern or routine that you can fall back into easily. So I claim 10 and a half years. I can say that during COVID, I fell off the wagon. But I'm one of those people that think that it's the bigger picture. Like some people are real ledger people. Like, nope. So your sobriety only goes back. Nope. It's a stumble, and I think that quest for perfection is a huge obstacle for people. When you feel like that something like that happens, that you're a failure, it's like the classic I eat because I'm depressed because I eat cycle. And you got to break it, and it's hard. I feel rambly, right? I think the point I'm trying to make is that it feels impossible, but it really, I think, boils down to faith. I don't mean religious faith. I mean faith in it's going to work out, and don't try to be perfect, and it will work out. I can remember about 4 months in, just realizing I'm kind of having a good time. Like I would go to AA meetings and like hang out with people after them. We weren't talking about alcohol. We were talking about hobby. We were talking about other things. So it became less of a obligation to deal with a problem than an actual positive thing to do. And confession, my father and his wife, well, she's still alive. My father passed away, but they got married in 1990. And what started their relationship was they started going to AA together. Spent the rest of their lives sober. So it's like it's in the family. The habit is there, but they kept going to AA. Like they had friends in AA. They moved to France, and like they would import friends because they were that kind of person. Like they built a house with guest rooms, not just room. There was like a guest suite so that they could just invite, come stay with us in France. And probably half of those people were people they met through AA. So I don't have like a big connection to AA, but I just have some good news.
Yeah. No, and I love that
I encourage people to find a way. Well,
well, and I love that you shared two things that you shared that I think people listening to will be able to relate to. Is one, you fell off, right? You drank, but you still have that time. And I love that you didn't take that away from yourself. And I know that's not everybody's idea. I think that that's awesome. And I also love that you shared, it was about 4 months before you were like, wait, I'm not even really here for that right now. What are some of the unexpected joys that you've had since you've dumped a drink?
I think that something people don't realize is the physical toll it's taking on. I kind of normalized 5-hour nights of sleep and feeling terrible, but it was like just feeling, every morning was a process to get out of that hole and then dive back into it the next evening. Huzzah, a great idea. I really, my goal was to feel better, more emotional, and to be more available, not to be asleep, not to be so passive and stuck in my little hidey hole, and to get out in the world. And I didn't really realize how much, like I said, how much of a physical toll it was. And then I started being able to sleep through the night, not wake up at 3:30 and be up for a half an hour every single night, not have conflict with whoever I was dating because, hey, I'm waking up every night in the middle of the night, kind of thing. Those kind of smaller but very significant impacts on your life, those things went away. And like that, you physically feel better, your health is better, absent any change. You should go to the gym, you should ride a bike, you should go kayak, you should do all sorts of things if that's your thing. But without even doing that, you just feel better.
Yeah.
And you get along with people better. Like I was always a nice guy. I was never the fight with people physically or I'm kind of a sucker. Like I'm not an outright sucker, but like I'm a bit of an accommodator. But I've never been the kind of person that like get drunk, call people names, and create conflict. But when you're drunk and you're not available, you're not 100% you, and you're just there. It isn't part of the plan, or wasn't for me. But then there it is. People like you better. I don't mean that people dislike you, but you're more pleasant, more there. It's not something I really love.
Well, and you mentioned dating and being able to sleep through the night. With dating, do you find alcohol to be a thing now since you don't drink? Or is it?
People have gotten, the people that I'm interested in have gotten, for the most part, a lot more progressive about, things like drinking and whatnot. And I think it's cool, and throw some air quotes, to not drink these days. It's cool at some point to not smoke. When I was in high school, just like every kid smoked. It's just normal. It was cool. I think I started smoking because I went to a very progressive high school in Brooklyn that had a smoking lounge. And there was a girl that I liked in that smoking. So how can I go in there without being too obvious? Hey, I'll smoke. I think I lost track there.
No, I was just Curious, like, if it changed dating for you.
I've always been what someone might call chronically single. I rarely date, and I usually date people that I'm interested in. However, I'm very interested in. However, I think before I stopped drinking, that filter was when I was drinking, the filter is off. So it's like you wind up dating people that you're just they're either convenient or they're just really attractive, or there's some sale, as it were, in a moment, and you're not pursuing people that are partners.
Yeah.
I don't mean like necessarily like one night stands and hookers or anything crazy like that, but just like
If you're
I can just
bonding
think of
over
one or two people
alcohol.
that I associate. And they're not bad people; they're just not the right people, and they're not long term people. And I think that I know that habits like this drive short term uh, thinking.
Mm.
And I'd say that since I stopped, maybe I've had a less frequent romantic life, but more interesting.
I
I'm
love
also
that you said
older.
that.
I'm not 30 or 20. And there's not like an abundance of just people running around like, woo. You got to be a little bit more creative.
Um, my brain went like 10 different places. Um, is it still hard
Mhm.
to not drink? Is it still a challenge?
Sometimes I honestly think of it in sort of this romantic way. Like I believe when we started, I learned to like, I liked it. It feels great, but the downside's just so much bigger than the upsides. I make a sort of comedic comparison to cocaine. That cocaine, I hear the joke, what is it? Rick James, cocaine is a hell of a drug. It really is, and it's alcohol to the 12th power or something. It's the idea that like you just can't get enough. And talk about downside to upside. Alcohol is 1 to 1,000. Cocaine is 1 to 10 million. That every single vice like this is like that. What it takes from you is so much more than what it used to. It doesn't feel that way in the moment. Um, I do sometimes. I kind of wish I could, but I think part of the reason why I didn't succeed in that relapse in 2020 is I couldn't drink. I don't know whether my biology has changed or whether I have developed a subconscious something, but it made me feel physically awful. I couldn't do it. And it lasted just a couple of weeks, and I basically stopped because it wasn't good. I couldn't drink. It wasn't that I didn't want to. Like I had these, like a fond memory of an old relationship. Think of all the good things, not bad. And I just couldn't do it. And now, every now and then, I think I'd love to be able to get drunk, but I don't think I can. So I'm sort of at this point practically. So there's the temptation, but I don't think there's any real risk. I don't think it's possible for me to drink again because whatever's happened has created a physical response that is intolerable. It's almost as if like I've heard stories about a pill that people can take. So that if you take it, then you ever drink, it makes you fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I've got that.
Yeah. Would you be willing to share what got you to drink again in 2020?
I mean, I don't want to just say COVID. I mean, but it was like the whole wasn't my fear of COVID. It was what I see as I'm 55. I've been around enough to see how people have behaved politically, socially. You know, the internet has made it a lot more visible. The Facebooks and the comment sections on everything. But it seemed to me that everybody's response on every side of the political aisle, everybody was reacting in just terribly negative, adversarial, like the level of combativeness of society just went through the roof. And I think that I've always just considered myself kind of moderate. Confession, I tend to lean left when it comes time to pull the ballot, but actual values are somewhere in the middle, and it's a compromise. And I don't think that I feel like at that time people, much more so than ever in the past, started the divide that we're experiencing now. It's kind of traumatic. And on top of which, I moved to Washington. It's a sort of series of events. I moved to Washington in 2017. My mother was stage with colon cancer, and she was, I don't know. I mean, I was hopeful that she might recover or prolong, so I moved out, and she didn't. So that was, losing your mom is a pretty big deal. And then over the next year and a half, actually all in the mountain bike community, I've lost 4 very close friends. 2 died from cancer. 1 died from sickle cell anemia, and 1 in a motorcycle. And they were like the kind of people that they're the stars. You have friends, and your friends are amazing. There's certain people that are just like, they're those community people that stand out. Like my friend Sajad, he was a coworker also. He was one of those people that, across that divided political aisle, in that room where people can't get along, everybody gets along with you. It was that guy. It just somehow you could not have a problem with. And that's who you lose. And then, you have that series of things. So I think that contributed a lot to overall. And then COVID, and then, I could go on and on. I'm sure there's always a lot going on. And you had told me something earlier about something that you were dealing with recently. And it can be overwhelming, and it's important to remind you, this thing with myself, that I get to you, that you have to be yourself. I'm kind of losing myself, or losing my point, right? Just that, don't let it drag you down. Ride your hero cape a little bit. Don't be afraid to be the good guy, to be the white knight in that case, because it's appropriate. What people really need.
I mean, I guess I could share what you're referring to. So I have somebody in my life that is essentially drinking themselves to death. And it's funny you say like white knight. At one point I showed up thinking like, I don't know, an intervention. Like, I don't know what I thought. If nothing else, I thought I was going to have a chance to say goodbye, but
it's a when you were playing that role, and I mean, I don't know that white knight is the right term, but I think that some people might use that term inappropriate.
Yeah.
That you're doing something for the wrong reasons, you're doing something for your own reasons. But when you're being on the other side of the fence of alcoholism or abuse, and I went through this with my father, I went through this. When you confront them, they're not receptive, and they might attack you to hold on to the friendship thing. That even if they, like I say, they know something that you really that's true about it, pull that card.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding to just be able to take that and stay on the path of help.
Yeah.
That's that alcohol talk. It's a really tough challenge, because helping someone you love or care about that at that time doesn't want to be helped, they fight back.
Well, they're not loving and caring about themselves, right?
I'm a very reactive person that, like, I think I'm a real nice guy in the big picture, but in a moment in traffic, on the street, someone treats me the wrong way, I become the asshole. Whatever they've done wrong, I wouldn't take the credit away from myself to say that it wasn't something to react to. But wow, can I take it too far?
Yeah.
And that's something that I have to work on. Acknowledging things. It's just like, once you acknowledge a problem, you have the opportunity to work. It's not fixed. That's an important thing. Some people equate those two things that are not the same. Still working.
You know, I love that you're talking about you still have to work on it, because you shared that when you made the decision to quit drinking, you started immediately working with therapists. You went to Alcoholics Anonymous. Like,
I needed help.
yeah,
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but I did.
yeah.
I
Well,
needed help.
no, and I like how much of that. I mean, you shared a little bit about AA. How much did the therapy help? Did you stick with the therapy? Like, what other resources? Like, I think there's more people listening that reach out to me that are curious about not drinking, as much as there are people who aren't drinkers. And I think it's important to share the pathway that worked for you, right? 10 years, even with a blip, is significant. That's a lot of choosing yourself and choosing this path every day.
I'd say that a lot of the time it's become the habit. I think the habit of drinking has to be replaced with the habit of not drinking. Not the it's not the cessation of the habit. It's a different habit. You know, it's kind of a different way to look at it. I have a habit of not drinking, and I think most people who are not alcoholic, who are not, or who don't drink too much, they're in the habit of not drinking. Drinking is, like I was saying earlier about lobster and cake. It's a treat. It's not, or it's something that you might do at a wedding, or hey, your college roommate is in town. Now that's the one time that getting stupid might be socially acceptable over the age of 20.
Do you do that now? Like, would
Oh
you go
no,
to a wedding and
I don't
drink?
think so. Because I don't think my experience in that short blip was that I physically can't do it. It's not pleasurable.
Yeah.
Um, but B, um, the experience most people have, and the experience I had prior to being long-term quit. I did quit prior to that, 3 months, 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, on off, on off, on off, on off. Is the exception is I think that I don't remember the exact quote, but it's like one drink is 1,000, something like that. As soon as you take one drink, up the floodgates open wide up. There's no moderation.
Yeah.
And what I find is I would trick myself because I'd stop for 3 months and then I drink on a Friday, and then I drink on a Friday and a Saturday, and then I drink on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and then I'd be drinking all week. So it would take a little while,
Yeah.
but
It
it's
goes
not
right back into
moderation.
it.
You're just postponing flood.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I know this story. You know, you talk about that, like that moment where you're like, oh, you're speaking to me, because I'm just like,
Okay, so I was going to call that back out. That when people say things that they're 90% of their story is all over the map, you're like, what the hell is this weirdo talking about? Boom, epiphany time. It's like, holy crap, they're in my head right now.
how long? So, if you don't mind, you said you're 55, so 10 years, so 45. Did you start drinking at 21? Were you a teenager? Like, what was your first drink like? When was that?
I was honestly really good at moderation through probably until later in college. Well, I mean, alcohol was never really like early on. I did as a teenager, like I might have when I was 15, went to a party and had 2 beers. I never had any incidents or no fights, no real issues, no abuse, no interventions, whatnot. Um, I wasn't really interested in drugs. I think I smoked once every few months with random people, and I always felt like it made me tired, and I don't want to do it again. And then I got to college, and I'd go out to the bars, and again, you can drink and get cute girl from the soccer team is on the dance floor, and you just you go over there and act stupid and see if it works, and then it does, and then you're happy. But that's college. But I don't think I ever really got. But then here's where some more sordid details comes in, depending on your level of what is sordid. I started selling weed at college, and then when you just have a half pound of weed in your, just kind of start smoking casually. I think that sort of set the stage for normalizing consuming something without there being anything special. Like prior to that, Thursday nights I'd hang out with the gang with spades and smoke once. once I started selling it, it just became a regular thing. So I think that set the stage, even though I didn't drink. So I became a pothead, but I still am to a degree. I do that on and off. Some people have a different opinion of AA or sobriety,
Yeah.
one or the other. I think they're different. I don't think
That's
that's
why
a
I say
pond I want to wade into.
undrunken.
Yeah, that's a pond I don't want to wade into because people are really opinionated and just fight over things that are not ultimately that important, like most of society. Um,
We don't need to get inhumane and split hairs over the fact that you're not consuming alcohol, whatever term. That's why I like the word undrunken, because some people do and don't consider this and that. And it's like, no, we're here to talk about alcohol, right? Like, it, you'll probably know this. Do you remember the old cartoons and the bottles of alcohol? Do you remember the symbol that would be on them?
Those three exits, poison. As a little kid, I thought about that. Like, why is it three X's on the alcohol? I mean, what is I didn't really understand alcohol, but being like 5 or 6 and knowing that, well, that's poison. Why are they drinking? I thought that was weird. Is it because they're cowboys and they're really tough or something? Poison doesn't hurt them.
So what do you drink when you go to a wedding or a football game or soccer game?
Some kind of junk. I struggle with this as a different addiction, but like I'm bankrupt myself for Monster Energies and stuff. Ideally, I drink water. I think water is pretty tasty. I have some home concoctions that I make out of green tea and fruit punch mix that's pretty awesome and low calorie. But I'm like a lot of people when you're in that situation, you want convenience. You don't have access to a kitchen and you can make what you want. I'll grab a ginger ale or something. I always joke that's my favorite. The only sodas I like Coca-Cola, ginger ale, root beer. So I still drink ale and beer, just the alcohol-free version.
Yeah.
But love me some ale.
Do you feel like it's hard to find options when you go out?
I honestly, I mean, if I were to go out to a bar with people, like they have mixers, so they're definitely going to have ginger ale. I'm not going to miss ginger ale. I think that's pretty much that. That's the staple. That's the like pretty much no matter where you go, it's ginger ale. Or in the rare occasion you're in some podunk town diner, it might be Sprite.
Yeah.
I'd rather have ginger ale, but I like the sort of clear liquid.
Have you listened to the podcast?
I think I've snippeted it. I don't think I've gotten through a whole episode. So I don't know whether it's an excuse or not. I'm one of the billions of claimed attention deficit. I have the benefit of a diagnostic going back to 1977. So I think my diagnosis for ADD goes predates most. So at least on an old man's on a time scale, I win something.
Back when they were still prescribing Ritalin?
Yeah, no, I had Ritalin when I was still. I had Ritalin in college, and honestly, I would not. I was going into my 6th year in college, and I'm just like, I can't close the door on anything. And I started seeing a therapist expressly because in order to see the psychiatrist, I had to see the behavioral therapist first, and then she referred me to the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist gave me Ritalin, and I was able to like do all my senior work. Like it wasn't a miracle thing. I was still struggling, but it was a pretty huge hand helping hand. And what's funny is once I graduated, I worked in a yacht club in Montauk, New York, for the summer, and I still had lots of the stuff left. And, there's more sort of details on my drug dealing past, but people wanted the stuff, so I sold off all my spare Ritalin.
Well, I mean, even now you mentioned Monster Energy drinks. I mean, that's kind of self-medicating in a way, right? Like, and I'll be the first, like caffeine is, when I quit drinking, I said to myself, like, drink whatever else you want, as long as it's not alcohol. Like, just don't worry about it, because I wanted that freedom to explore and also just, I don't know, just not be hard on myself, right? Like
You can't
too
not have
restrictive.
vices. You can't not. I mean,
Yeah.
especially someone who's had them so, someone might say it's a cop out. You're not strong. Just toughen up. I'm like, yeah, screw you.
I think the
You need
stupidest
to have
thing.
an out, and it's a theme that I've been aware of for a very long time, and it's something that I let you know that I'm out of work at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm out of work because of a hyper competitive, cutthroat environment. But part of the reason why I couldn't cut some throat to my damn self was trying to be perfect.
Mm.
Try to do everything. If you try to do everything perfectly, you're going to do half what you could, half as good as if you just tried to be. And what you're talking about is in from my perspective, an attempt at perfection. You can't be perfect.
Right.
You could joke around and call it a vice, but like really, alcohol is bad for some people. It's some people's voice. I think that if you can moderate whatever it is, then good for you. I envy that. Envy may be a bad thing, but I'm still really concede. If you can do that, then that's great. I used to be able to do that. I can't anymore, so I'm not. But it's helpful to hear you say it. I do want to not drink 2 or 3 monsters a day because they're expensive. Even if you do well, that's probably not, that's like that's a full array of, I can subscribe to everything on my TV for what I would pay for Monster, and if entertainment is your thing, but it's all subjective. It's all what you want. So if the Monster is what you want, and that's what helps, satisfy your self-medication, that's a hell of a lot better than alcohol.
Oh yeah. I mean, I drink a lot of kombucha, right? Which
I haven't fallen into that. I
I
still think
don't
it's
like the
weird.
real bougie ones, but there's some real nice light ones that they feel like a treat, And at the end of the day, like I don't know that I was addicted to the alcohol as much as it felt like a reward or a treat. Like there was some
It feels
weird thing.
good. I think it's
Yeah.
crazy to deny that. I mean, the reason why you're using it to escape feeling bad is because it feels good. It's not just like some people, it doesn't just turn you off. It's not like Vicodin where you just turn into a zombie. No, I've hurt myself badly time and again, and I see why people do that. But like, that's another gross drug. I mean, I don't know, what am I was trying to get to a point. And then the ADD.
I like it. You squirrel like I do. um, what does it feel like I mean, are you ever in situations where you're surrounded by people drinking?
Yeah,
What does
never.
that feel?
I've never felt like it's a problem. It's never been my compulsion. I've been also to my uh, disadvantage, a very, very independent minded person. And it's let me be a little bit abrasive at times. It doesn't always fit in well. But at the same time, it's like, I care what some people think, but mostly I'm pragmatic. Like, I care what people think about me pragmatically. Like, if I need to get a job, I need to maintain appearances. I want people to have the right impression of me, but that's more of a politic. Personally, I could give a shit what 99% of people think, because I think most people kind of suck. Because some of the nicest people, they seem like they're into the right things and they say the right things, and then you find out that it's just a political joke that they eat ducks. But you just find out that they have some like outrageous zipper merging doesn't work. I draw the line at people that don't believe in zipper.
Oh, you mean the ones that merge right when they get on the freeway instead of actually like helping with the flow of traffic?
What I love about it is, again, I think we started on. I'm from New York. New Yorkers are, on the one hand, assholes, but they're pragmatic assholes, and they will cooperate out of pragmatism. So zipper merges tend to work in me. What I've noticed, and I noticed it in a specific spot here, and if you're a driver and you drive on 90, you drive on 90 West, and you're approaching exit 10, people just start backing up in that right lane. And if you New York it and just drive up to the front, you'll find that there's just some jerk who's trying to cross lanes and holding traffic back. Everybody's perceived that as traffic, so they're lining up like lemons. And if you just go past it, the exit's clear. You could go 60 right through.
Yeah.
And that attitude is something that is just that's not something I'm used to. It's like falling in line it's a very, at least in terms of driving, it's a very, I don't know, very lemming. It's a very uh, sheepish. I don't know. Maybe you can help me with the term here, but it's like people are just falling in line and they're group thinking in a very unproductive way. It's like same. Go ahead.
I'd like to look at it like they're on autopilot. They're just not thinking.
And it's funny because I go four wheeling. I don't know if you pay attention to Facebook, and over the past 6 months I've been building my Jeep. I had a buddy I used to wheel with, and he's like full on redneck, like gun toting, Trump loving, all everything that you'd expect to be like ah. And he was we were going wheeling one time, and we were approaching exit 10, heading south, going to Evans Creek. And boom, he drops in the line. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? I just drove past him and I'm on the highway. And he caught up like 20 minutes later. I'm like, what was that? But, like I said, I'm that guy that goes right to the front. I'm a jerk. Again, half the audience is going to say, oh.
I'm pretty sure there's a half dozen people I know listening to this. They're like, I'm a jerk too. Yeah. That's funny.
I have two cars. One car is relatively speaking, unless you've got a pretty expensive or very, very fast car, I'm going to beat you. And the other one is not fast at all, but it's got steel all over it. And if you really want to argue, you better be like an F-350 or bigger, because 6,000 pounds of quarter-inch plate steel wrapped around here. Well, there's not 6,000 pounds of steel parts
covered in steel.
I don't tell like the little blue fast car. I'll stay pretty close to someone's rear bumper. The black truck, I'm not going anywhere near anyone, because if they stop short, I'm going through.
I don't think I've ever seen your little blue car.
It's a little Volkswagen Golf R. When you're 6'7" and you pop out of these little cars, it's added drama. People are just like, what?
I don't have that problem. I'm only 5'2".
It's always like, I couldn't remember that we did meet, but it's funny when I do meet. Like, ostensibly my titles when I returned to work, and my last title was technical account manager. And as a technical account manager, if you're familiar with post-sale support in the industry, tech support, you go on site to customers' environments from time to time, have meetings, talk about progress and projects and whatnot. And I remember going down to Salem, Oregon, to a hospital, and the woman that I was meeting made it a point to point out that she was about 5'2", and I said, well, I want to make it a point that me and my partner Graham, I'm 6'7", about 245. He's 6'5", about 300, and like 300 football player, can bench press your house, built guy. So like, some people are, when two people of our size walk into a room, no matter how much of a nice guy or, like I always say, as growing up in Brooklyn, how much of a white boy I am, people are still like, whoa, and they kind of cringe and move back.
Yeah, you're 1.5 feet taller than me. I do remember that. Yes. Yeah. What is a lesson that alcohol taught you that you think everyone should know?
Try not to just regurgitate something someone else has said.
Oh, no, just be you, dude.
I mean, it's just excess. It's not unique to alcohol. I think that when you deal with this habit, this bad habit, addiction, what's the right word for it? It's at least a bad habit. Mm-hmm. It can make you mindful of excess elsewhere. Like a Monster Energy. You eat too many M&Ms. It can help you with mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of many things a lot of people use to grow. But mindfulness alone, I mean, what are you being mindful of? You have to be mindful to be mindful of, and things just sort of come into your perspective. So that's one of the things that, if you're a mindful person, or if you become mindful through the process of recovery, you learn to measure those things in other parts of your life, and it helps you improve those. So, maybe, you talk about the monsters. Okay, yeah, you self-medicate with whatever, but can you moderate that a little bit? And for me, the answer is yes. So not only is it an alternate, a better alternate, it's not a substitute, and I don't think people should ever try to replace alcohol. You should never try to replace a bad habit with some, you're making a plate. I don't think you should do that. But as we discussed earlier, you can't be perfect, and you need to have something. And the fact that it's better and you can moderate it, that's a double win.
Yeah.
So
It reminds me.
Long-winded. Sorry.
No, that was beautiful, and it reminds me of something you said earlier. We're talking about moderating, and like you, I did for years until I fully just was done with alcohol. Took 3 months off, took a month off, 6 months off. How long did you do that dance before you were just done?
I think that alcohol started being a regular part of my life, like a real abuse, around 2001. I had lost my job. I was living with family in Connecticut, and I was from New York. And then I remember I started smoking cigarettes, and then I just felt bored. I didn't have anything to do. I'm sitting in their house putting out resumes. Unless I have an interview, I'm stuck in this sort of cutesy little town in Connecticut. It's really posh and everything, but it's not very active. So I started drinking. And what's funny is, again, as I described earlier, my stepmother, and my father were sober. But as I also described, they had a guest suite, for part of where I was staying, because they always liked to invite friends. And they also kept plenty of alcohol in the house because they were fine. They didn't drink it. They were very good at not drinking, but they kept it around for friends. But I think around 2001 I started, and I would drink half a bottle, fill it with water so it wasn't obvious, then finish that, and then crap, got to go to the liquor store and replace it, and just keep cycling through that. And that sort of started that during that stressful period. And I guess I kind of thought like it was just recreational. Like once I get back to work and life is normal again, like this hobby will go away. And then it kind of stuck around. And then I think that was about 2001 to 2014 was like a period. And I think at least every 2 years, and then sometimes like 3 months on, 3 months off, like towards the end, like from 2011 to 2014, it was just like 3 months on, 3 months off. But I want to backtrack there and remind, for people who need encouragement, what I was saying earlier is that that's better than all the time on.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to take your wins where you can. You can't let imperfection, not failure, you can't let imperfection deter you from improvement.
Thank you for that. What would you say to younger you about alcohol?
Honestly, that alcohol and drugs are such a distraction that the easiest way to avoid problems with them is to avoid them in the first place. And that's a difficult challenge because life is about curiosity and experiences. And we've all been kids, and even the best of us has balked at something our parents told us was a stupid thing. We've still done that stupid thing. So
some of us are still doing that.
It's just like once you are drinking and you open the door, you're opening the door. Don't ever open the door. Don't be afraid of it. Just like be that kind of, you need leadership that you trust, real good leadership. And when you trust good leadership from a parent, you're still going to screw up, but you're going to do it a lot less, especially if you trust them. So like if you're getting advice from someone that says, don't drink alcohol, it's terrible. It's just spiel. It's just somebody being afraid and whatnot. But if someone says, you know, you shouldn't drink because these are the kind of things that a lot of people deal with. Is it worth that risk? If you have honest conversations and you don't play the authoritarian role or the dumb role, just like anything. If you communicate clearly in any relationship, you're going to have better outcomes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there are really stupid people and you have to manage them. Hopefully they're not in your family, or they're just like coworkers, but that's a different story.
Well, I mean, honestly, like, has that been a thing for you? Like, is not drinking a thing with people with you?
No. I think early on, before I ever had problems with alcohol, like when I was younger, I just didn't drink. Like people would want to drink, and I was like, I don't want to. And I would get peer pressure, but as I also said earlier, shit. It's like I that never defined. Like I define me, and my biggest obstacles have always, whether it's good or bad self-esteem, you're riding a wave or you're down in the pit, you reflect that. It's really up to you. Other people matter a lot. I want people to like me, but not at the expense of me. You have to be you, and I think that I know that I'm a goofball. Like I said, I'm 55, but I act like a 12-year-old. I'll be at a mountain bike race, stomping around like an idiot, making weird noises, barking, but that's who I am. If I suppress that, and what's great about that is one of the best relationships I did have, discussed that earlier, was meeting a woman at a race. She was doing the same thing. I'm like, that woman's crazy. I gotta go meet her. She was like barked, she's like just screaming at people and just being completely outrageous. And we hung out and had a lot of fun. Yeah. But you can't do that if you're putting on airs.
I mean, I was going to ask what's something you've done or do that is typically associated with needing alcohol. And I think it sounds like just being you. I mean, I think a lot of people need alcohol to let that goofball out.
I never really had that problem. And I'm telling you, sober now, or whether I smoke a joint or I just woke up and I'm sober, I'm probably significantly sillier and funnier, more substantial without the influence. I think my mom has pictures of me as a scrawny little 9-year-old doing Arnold poses. Because I grew up when Arnold was a competitive bodybuilder. Like this like stick skinny kid doing back flares.
What's your favorite thing about being undrunken?
I think that daily battle. I remember even before it was like a big battle, when it was just sort of like, yeah, I kind of should. I would, my routine was, I get up, take a shower, go to work my ass off, come home from work. As soon as I landed from work, I might bike ride. I lived in New York City. I came off, chill out, go to the park, and free ride, do some stair gaps, things like that. But then it was, Red Bull, 2 vitamin waters, chicken, what do you call that? Rigatoni. I get a plate of food that was enough for 4 people, and a pint of rum, and just go consume. That was my evening. And pretty much every day, the part where I was approaching the liquor store, especially toward the last maybe 2 years, it was like stopping on the corner of a liquor store and saying, I shouldn't do this. Mm-hmm. And all I have to do is just go home. So that's it's not, and then just somehow fuck it, and going in and getting it.
Maybe tomorrow, maybe on the 1st, maybe after this.
There's just some marker, maybe it should be on a Monday. Well, at least I should do it in the morning. I should do it, on Mom's birthday. I should do it. There's some marker.
After Mom's birthday.
Just some reason.
Yeah.
The cliche things are, the time is now and just do it. And these are both I think they're both ad-driven statements, but they really, just do it. Is if you're sitting around thinking, should I do something? I think back to another cliche. When in doubt, there is no doubt.
Yeah.
If you think you should do something, go ahead. Should I do the dishes? Yes, you should. Do you have something else planned? Is there a date? Do you have to finish your paper on nuclear physics? No, do the dishes. It's not something more important to do if you're thinking about it. Should I? Yes, you should. I'm not saying I do
Want
it, but you should. Now is the best time for everything. And that's the trick. It's like things that stress me out sometimes, like I don't have a dishwasher. If I eat something on a plate, when you're done, don't put it in the sink. Finish that task. The task of eating includes cleaning up after yourself. Otherwise, you create this accumulation, and now you have to do that later. It's a task. It's a big task. So what I'll do is, sometimes I'll fall off that way. It's like the laundry. If you take the laundry out of the dryer, fold it, put it away. Sometimes you take it out, throw it on the bed, get distracted. Or sometimes you take the dish to the sink and you give it a good rinsing. It's clean for all practical purposes, but you really want to give it that final cleaning. So
Right.
So you got a stack of sort of clean dishes in the sink. They're just sort of building up, and because they're building up, you're like, I don't want to do them now. I'll do them later, and then they get more and more, and then you have all these big tasks. So the just do it it's really hard to do. Some people are awesome at it. Some people are good at it. Some people are terrible at it. I tend towards that part of the scale. But
How does that apply to,
lesson.
how do you feel like that could apply to alcohol?
Oh, well, it's kind of the challenge of doing it now, stopping now, of making a decision, of executive decision, that it's not just an addiction, it's an inability to yes or no things. Now is not a good time. I mean, you can drink frequently if you want, without it being. It's always. I think that frequent drinking is probably not good. Biologically, doctors will tell you it's physically bad for you, but I think that people could drink more frequently if they're well moderated, without it having negative effects on their professional and social. However, you have to be able to just say yes, no, now. You have to do things now because it's that immediacy, that executive action. So, it's the way things like I will use the term, striving for perfection or not letting perfection be the enemy of good. These things all kind of tie together somehow. They tie to the executive decision. Is you're looking for a perfect evening. Well, you wind up in this comfortable place, that's comfortable, so you go there. If you're willing to take a chance on something else, if you're willing to make these executive decisions, I don't know that I'm explaining it that well because I can see it in my head, but it's a decision. And it's about now. And we get caught up in what we've done in the past and how the patterns have been and how we think things might go, and lose the power of a decision now. And it's
Wrapped up in
making decisions is really hard. When you make a decision between whether you go on this trip or that trip, it's a first world problem. Or a decision on whether you have a ham sandwich or a turkey sandwich. You don't get the other one. Are you going to be disappointed in that? Or are you going to relish the one that you chose?
Mm.
So I think it's kind of that indecision that gets people stuck and they can't get past comfort zone.
I love that.
It's more thinking in its words, and the bottom line is just do it. Whatever rationale, however intellectual you want to make it, the only way for something to happen is to do it. I saw a bumper
That's like
sticker
such a motto for me in my life. Just do it. Just go. Just do it.
I have some of the bumper stickers. My stepmother had a bumper sticker that said, "If you don't, you won't." Apply it to alcohol. If you don't drink, you won't drink. How about apply it to a relationship? Cute girl over there, cute guy over there, cute whatever over there. If you don't go over there, you won't meet. If you don't ask them out, they won't go out.
If you don't,
if you don't jump off the bridge, you won't die. You can apply it to like so many things. And then my mama, my biological mama, had this little magnet on the mirror that said, "Leap and the net will appear." And that's about faith in yourself. If you're going to try to do something, you're not just recklessly, like if you try to become an IT engineer, you're not just gonna with no training, be like, I'm gonna be an IT engineer. You go and you get your training and then you try. and you have faith that you've done the things you need to do, and you have the abilities and skills to do it. You have to assume that it'll work out. And my experience, when you can put the fear away and just do it, you get more success than a lot more success. And when you get the failures, you get to learn from them. It's really cliche, but you learn from your failures. It's one of the best ways to learn how to do something right is to see what happens when you get it wrong.
I really like how you tasked not drinking in a way like you would becoming an IT engineer, to use your example. Like you didn't just be like, okay, I'm going to quit drinking and white knuckle it and try and drink enough water to not want alcohol. You were like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And do you think that helped with your success?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's any goal in life is not passive. You can't hope for things to come to you. I've been fortunate and had that attitude about some things, and some of them worked out, but most of them didn't. Like I said, that girl isn't, I grew up maybe in different times than I perceive they are now. Maybe girls ask boys out now, but basically, like if I didn't, I found out the hard way or the good way, whichever way you want to put it. Like as a young adult in my 20s, all the girls that liked me in high school that now have the courage to say that they like me, and now I'm like, well, what about now? That like, and they were, like, they were the people that I would have been interested in. But if you don't, you won't.
No, just do it. I love that. So I would love to do what I call quick fire with you. Um, a sentence or two about how being undrunken has affected these areas of your life, or like I like the wheel of life, these spokes in your wheel of life. And totally, I just want you to have permission. If we go off on a tangent, I love it. So don't feel like quick fire is limiting. It's just it's a format. So, okay. How has being undrunken affected work?
I show up. The idea of I used to miss work all the time, and it was a problem. It was definitely something I was spoken to about. Using almost all of my vacation on an annual basis. I don't want to come in there. That doesn't go over really well. So it definitely you have a lot more days to use the actual vacation. Although I've not been good about using my vacation. That's burned me out in the past. That's a different story. It's not related. Definitely helps at work because you're more there. I mean, like, take me so much more time in the morning to get started in motion to come out of a show. And people notice. I mean, your energy level is different. People, I think that if you are, someone who drinks in a similar way that I did, or enough that it affects you physically in some, your attendance and whatnot, that when you stop, someone's going to say something. And I want them to. You're not looking for somebody to, but when you hear that, it's like, that's a nice marker. When someone acknowledges, like, wow, man, you've been really sharp.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I know why. It's good.
How has being undrunken affected money?
I'm terrible with money, but it's definitely saved money. It's probably spend, between the actual alcohol and like food habits, whether it's hundreds of dollars a month. So that's helpful. Mostly just, throw that at the car now. So maybe a turbo or some kind of sway bar or something.
How has being undrunken affected your love life?
I say that there's the complexity of being a transplant. I think that socially, I describe myself as, I'm charming as hell, but I'm not a social butterfly. I'm not how I connect really well. So alcohol was a way, as I said earlier, of making cheaper connection. I don't want to cheapen them to like nothing. Nobody's poor, but your standards are probably significant.
Yeah.
I think that combined with age, I'm at a point where it's like infrequent, but I'm not looking for just I'm neither looking for just sex like a younger person, but I'm also not looking with expectations. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
as I've gotten older, I realize what I want. I like to be hot for someone, and I think that that's an important component. It's not unimportant, but I want a partner. I want someone who's like they're going to wash my dirty socks every once in a while, and I'm going to wash theirs. It's not like a old sexist like make me a sandwich woman. I'm making sandwiches. So I really like partnership with friends and with romantic partners. I think that's what it's not just friendship. I see your Facebook posts, things that you're doing with people, accomplishing. It's not just passive.
Well, I mean, on that note, how has being undrunken affected friends?
I'm more connected to them, and it's driven me to lean on friends and realize that people are really there for you. And it will show you the people that aren't, the people that run from responsibility and run from challenges or are judgmental. But I can tell you that I missed a romantic opportunity. And I think because of some of the challenges that led me to drinking, that's part of why I blew the romantic part. Like we had a passing, the romantic part in around 2008, and then in 2014, when I was getting undrunk, starting that process, she had done so herself, and she was so amazingly supportive, despite how disappointed. She really pursued me, and I screwed. Again, another story, but how supportive she is. It's amazing. And then I realized that you people you're so self-conscious. Most people are, but your good friends they're really good friends. And I leaned on other people, and they were good enough to let me know that, like, I'm really here for you. I'm not, I understand. I think I've had a feeling in the past that people are accommodating, not truly caring. And under those circumstances, I realized people will go out and run for you. You do matter. And when they do that, not just the help, but the fact that they did it, the fact that someone will get up, when you call someone at 3 o'clock in the morning freaking out and they come across town to your house and hang out with you, even though they have work in the morning. That's, that's amazing. And you don't realize that people will do that for you until you ask for it. Some people are so afraid to ask for it. A lot of people culturally think that you're supposed to go with things alone. And I just don't agree with that.
How has being undrunken affected family?
I don't know that it ever really had a big impact on family until I moved to Washington. My family, I lived in New York. My mother and my brothers all live out here. I have no family east. So there's no regular interaction. So there was no big day to day.
They never saw you.
They never saw me that way. And even when I came out here, I was always good at hiding it. Like I said, it's evening. It's something I do in my own space. But something I didn't have before was, while I would have in the past and from time to time, generally speaking, I would never get drunk in public, or pee in public drunk. And a lot of that has to do with just growing up and making some decisions which led me to be around really rough people, not wanting to be vulnerable in public. I would never be drunk for because that would make me.
How has been?
So it's easier to hide things.
Yeah.
I wasn't hiding it from people in that sense. I didn't want to be in public because, I can remember going out to get alcohol once in my apartment in Washington Heights in New York City, and going down the stairs, and there are marble steps, and falling and hitting my arm and being like, fuck, I just broke because I wanted to go get alcohol. That's one of the sort of incidents that sort of accumulates to drive you towards cessation. I felt vulnerable. I remember being outside drunk, just being really paranoid. that like someone was going to rob me, beat me up, fight me, or I was, and I would maybe kill somebody, or just something, because you're not in control. You don't have enough control. So I was wise enough to understand and protect myself from that. But at the same time, I don't understand being drunk. When I see people drunk in public, it's also pretty socially disgusting. Even when I was a kid, I would get drunk in
But
public.
drunk people are cool. What do you mean?
Drunk people, I've always found drunk people to be the most, the aggressively friendly drunk people. I'm not comfortable with you, sir. Please step back.
Bubble.
Yeah, like I said, I had a somewhat rough experience early on, and I expect people to be aggressive and hostile. So I don't like it when people get close, and I don't like to be drunk in public because, yeah, I'm sure you've seen some drunk people in public being the crowd. Probably don't aspire that yourself.
I have seen and through the podcast heard a lot. How has being undrunken affected spirituality?
Well, I don't think I've ever been particularly spiritual. As a kid, I'm a confirmed Protestant. I went to Sunday school. I was in the choir. I did all the good little kid stuff, good little rich kid stuff. But I think that I've never been an atheist. I think I'm definitely what you describe as agnostic. I don't believe in religion. I don't think that a belief in God is a belief in religion. There's a whole other discussion there, but
Yeah.
they're constructs of man, and they're meant to control people. And you'll hear tons of people say like most of the violence in the world is supported by a notion of religion.
Did it change once you quit drinking?
No.
No.
I think that I might be a little more curious. Then as I get older, maybe intermittently have more thoughts and maybe some fears. But I don't know. I mean, it's not a huge question for me. Like, I'm pragmatic in that I think that whatever the reality is the reality, and whether I acknowledge it doesn't change the reality. So if there is a God, I'm sitting in a chair, and I think that all other religious dictate aside, the only thing that I think is important is be good to people. Don't judge people. Be good to people. And,
Pun intended. Amen to that.
So the only thing, just don't abuse people. Don't take advantage of people. And so many people are so willing to do that. Even people who think they're good people.
Yeah.
Lots of different tangents to go on.
Well, how has being undrunken affected self?
I feel better, physically feel better. That daily combat is not there. That's very, very fatiguing, emotionally, physically, intellectually. You're rationalizing. You're just having these internal conversations about just gone. And we have these kind of conversations about all sorts of things. We have to make decisions. But that's that challenge, that like standing on the corner going, oh, I shouldn't. That's huge relief.
Yeah. What's one question you wish I had asked? And how would you answer it?
I feel like I'm in a job interview and they're asking people, why should we hire you? What's so special about you? Like me? There's that.
Maybe a better question would be, we've covered a lot. What's one thing that you want to share that we haven't covered?
I think just sort of like some of the travails, the specifics, the methods, the behaviors that we use to try to quit. I can remember that I would buy alcohol and I put it in the freezer because I wanted it cold. The way I drank was I'd buy that 12-ounce bottle of rum, and I'd pour 6 ounces into a glass, top it off to the rim with water, and just drink it instantly. I did not enjoy alcohol. I tasted it, care for it in that sense. And I think Scotch tastes like barf. I can't imagine what anyone would think Scotch is a good thing. Most of us are better than anything else. I think it's the absolute worst, bottom of the barrel, most disgusting thing you could drink. But people will pay thousands of dollars for the older and grosser it is. Like my comparison is Scotch tastes and smells like when you drink and then throw up the stuff that came up with Scotch. What was I saying? But what I would do as one of my, I put it in the freezer, and then I remember around the time that I was putting that I want to get rid of it. And I'm in New York City on the 4th floor. Open up the back window and I drop the bottle out of the window into the alley. My super was probably cleaning up glass shards, bottle every now and then. It's just one of the weird behaviors that you're just like, how can I get rid of it? And then I wouldn't drink that time. Maybe I'd drop it. It's just those little like, how did you stop? I can remember quitting smoking. I quit smoking cigarettes 1992, and then I had a relapse in 2001, September 11th, about the same time I started drinking. It was a pretty large trigger. September 11th was a pretty large trigger for me. I know.
Interesting, because that's where you were. You were in New York, right?
I was in Connecticut, and what was interesting is that on September 11th, my father was an architect, and he was retired from architecting, as it were. But he was revising one of his books, The AIA Guide to New York City, and he and my stepmother were driving through New York City to Long Island to do some surveying. They were driving to take pictures of major architecture and catalog in for the book. And if you knew anything about it, I'm pretty sure it was countrywide, but at least in the area, the cell phones and phone system were so overwhelming, you absolutely could not complete a phone call to anyone. And my father and my stepmother were in New York, and I couldn't communicate with them. Tend to be a negative thinker under stress, and all I could think is, maybe they were on the highway there, maybe they went there for some reason, where they were going, and having the thought like I didn't even know exactly where they're going. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a pretty large view. But at the same time, I remember that I was already drinking because my mother called me from Seattle. I was watching the movie 28 Days, which is about drinking. And I got a phone call from my mother, and I went out to the kitchen to answer the phone. And no, I answered the phone and I went out to the kitchen where there was a little TV because she said a plane just flew into the side of the World Trade Center. What? And that's also like, I had quit smoking 9 years before. Within 20 minutes, I was at the gas station smoking. So, kind of acknowledge the triggers. It was pretty. I mean, I don't know what other people's recollection at the time were, but it's just so unbelievable how possible ever do that. This isn't real. It's just my mind turned upside down.
No, that's triggers, things that activate those parts of us that want things like alcohol or cigarettes. Yeah.
They're comforting.
Yeah. Alastair, thank you so much for taking time with me today and for being flexible. I know we had to pivot a couple times on timing. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you sharing your story and trusting me to. Thanks for joining today. If you like this episode, please share it. That is the only way our podcast grows. You can tag me on Instagram at Undrunken Podcast. And if you or someone you know has a story to share or you're interested to know more, please reach out. Thank you again for joining me, and I hope you have an amazing day.